On today's podcast,
don't chase money, chase success, and the money always follows.
the truth is, adding value will never go out of style.
Hello, and thanks for joining us for a Five Things podcast. Today's podcast is with a longtime friend, Ben Brookhart. Thanks for joining us today.
Absolutely, Brian.
And gosh, we've known each other coming up on 20 years now.
Yeah, man.
Originally met through one of the craziest fun couples that I've ever known, Greg and Cookie Peacock.
That guy made us laugh. Oh my gosh, he could talk but made us laugh.
He was a true one-of-a-kind individual that I will always remember, and God rest his soul. But he was a really just an amazing guy to work with. But so Ben, one of the things I'm going to tell you, I don't know if I've ever publicly said this or even said this to you directly, but I think you're an amazing father. It's one of the things I've always really respected about you. And we'll talk a little bit about your solar company today. We'll talk a little bit about the book you wrote, the Success Hurricane. And the one thing that I want to say is that you've always been a practitioner. You know, in reading your book, I think one of the great things that people can take away from the book is the fact that you're talking about what you've done. You know, you've learned along the way, but you've made mistakes, you've learned from them. You're a practitioner. You know, you've built a great organization, hundreds of employees, great leader. I will say the guy that did your audio book, he doesn't have anything on your boom baby. Maybe I'm a little biased, but so thanks for joining us, and tell us a little bit about your background. Obviously, growing up in Indiana, and we'll start there.
Yeah, I'm a Hoosier, and so I grew up in Indiana, and my parents divorced when I was 8 years old. And that was a pretty tough time for me and my sister. And, when your parents divorce, you got to make that decision of who do you live with. And I lived with my dad because not only was he my dad, but he was my coach, he was my fishing buddy and my hunting buddy. And then he got remarried and things happened. And then it was time to go live with Mom. And, Mom allowed a lot of freedoms. And in high school, I really grew up quick because I was doing all the things that I shouldn't be doing that, when you get to college, you normally do. But when I got to college, it was all about baseball because I had a baseball scholarship. And that was really what my goals and dreams were, Brian, is to hopefully become a professional baseball player. And obviously I didn't get there, but I got into another profession, which my first job was selling home security systems.
And that's when you decided to move to Charlotte?
Yep, moved to Charlotte.
Yeah.
My cousin lived down there. I wanted to get out of the Midwest because it's, cold and not fun. And so I called my cousin and said, hey, I'd like to come down for the summer and get a job, check things out. He let me crash on his couch.
For 90 days.
For 90 days.
A good principle, he set a boundary.
That's right, he did. And family's cool, but you got to go.
Right, at some point.
And I think I was out of there before 90 days. And but I just got blessed to, my first mentor was my first boss. Well, I'm going to take that back. He was really my second mentor. It was my first boss, Greg Stokes, and he taught me so many valuable lessons. But he was just a guy from Alabama, good old country boy, just loved baseball, loved football, loved all sports. And to sit and listen to him tell me life stories were lessons that I took in my life and tried to, take those and do good with them.
A couple things about Greg, because I met Greg originally through you, and he could always tell a great story. He's probably one of the top three storytellers I've ever met. Yeah. But there's a real art in that, and I think it's a real ability. But he was always kind of the prototypical attitude of the good sales guy. Right. And I think you probably picked up a lot of that from him, I'm guessing, because you've always had that, A++ sales guy, always upbeat, run around giving people boom babies and stuff. And so anyway, I'm sure Greg was a huge influence. But tell us a little bit about the guy who called you Ben Man.
So Ben Man was my high school sweetheart's dad. His name was Fred, and just an awesome guy. Great father, very successful real estate owner, broker, had his own business, led me to Christ. Got saved in their church, just did so many great things for me, but he was tough, right? He didn't have a son, he had 4 daughters, and so he really treated me as his own son. And at a time where my dad and I weren't really talking, and I was living with my mom, he stepped in as that fatherly figure and really kept me on a good path through
That's
high
awesome.
school, and just taught me a lot of valuable lessons that I'm so appreciative of today. He knows that.
Awesome.
Yeah.
And so, that's someone who was definitely a positive impact in your life. And what's interesting to me is you kind of got some negative motivation from that scenario as well.
Yeah, absolutely. So the other side was my high school sweetheart's mom, who is an awesome person, and I love her too. But
Sure.
I came from a background where we weren't wealthy. My parents were divorced. I was a great athlete, but I wasn't the best student. I didn't have the best grades, and she liked me, but I was just that boyfriend. And of course, high school sweetheart, you're talking about the rest of your life. You're gonna get married, and that wasn't in the cards for her. And I always knew that she didn't really approve of me. And that was something that always bothered me, that, I wasn't good enough for her daughter, that she wanted so much more. And as a parent, I respect
You
that
totally
now.
get it now.
Right,
yeah,
totally
right.
get it
With
now.
your-
But
your
at the
girls.
time, so it was a motivation that I kept with me, that I wanted to prove her wrong, that I could be successful, and I could have been worthy. And her daughter went on and married someone very successful, and they're doing great, and has just as many kids as I do, and so life's good, and it worked out the way it's supposed to. And I met my beautiful wife on a blind date
Sure.
in Charlotte 23 years ago, and so everything works out the way it's supposed to.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think the mindset is that you can take motivation from any scenario. Some people could take that negative approval or negative disapproval and actually hurt their self-image and kind of beat them down a little bit, whereas you actually, that was fuel for your fire.
Yeah. Every day you get to make a choice, Brian. And I actually put a post on LinkedIn yesterday about, do you compliment or do you make complaints? Because they both start out the same way. And I told the story that as I was growing up, my dad, every time we'd go out to dinner, which wasn't often,
Right.
he'd always complain about something. The service was too slow, the steak wasn't cooked right, and he'd always call the manager over, and it was always to complain. Like, got to a point where it was embarrassing.
Sure.
And that was one of those lessons that I, learned, that I'm not ever going to be that guy. And so when my kids and my family and I go out to dinner, I make it a point to always call the manager over, but to give a compliment
Positive.
on the business or the service or the food, and to teach my kids, look, you need to look for compliments versus complaints, because complaining doesn't do you any good. It doesn't
Right.
make you feel good. Maybe for a second it does, but that's not the life that you want. You want to live a life of compliments, and that's what I try to teach not only my kids but everybody.
Right. And overall, just gratitude.
Yeah.
You can find something wrong with anything, with any organization or anything. So I think that's awesome. As far as, coming back to what you've built in the past, is that you've built a large organization with tons of employees. So you're in a great position to kind of say, if you were to give advice out there to an employee, because before you can become a business owner or you're going to go down that path, you're probably going to be an employee at some point.
Right.
What are a couple of the biggest things that you would say about employees? If you're an employee, what's one of the best things you could do?
Listen and learn as much as you can. Don't, just because you're the top sales guy doesn't mean that you can be the top business owner. It just doesn't work that way. Most of the time it doesn't.
Right.
We get in sales, when you get into a leadership position, it's very easy to promote your top salesperson because everybody thinks that they should be the person. But being a business owner isn't just about selling, it's about all different aspects of that business. So if that's something that you're thinking about doing and you want to open your own business and you're really good at what you do, then you need to listen, you need to ask a lot of questions to other people that don't do what you do. And you got to own what you do. Like, you got to be the very best, not just at selling or installation or whatever it is you do. You've got to be the best, but you've got to learn other aspects of the business, because if you don't, then you're always going to rely on somebody else to do something for you. And if you don't have experience, then you don't know what you don't know. And as a business owner, when you're first starting out, you can get hurt pretty quickly by somebody else's decision that maybe you didn't know exactly what they were doing. So biggest thing is to listen and learn as much as you can.
Okay. And I agree with that. And I'll just personally, one of the things that I learned early on with security company is a guy who had a fraudulent workman's comp claim, and I don't know if you probably dealt with this in the past and with all your employees, but having someone that said they got hurt on the job, when we had video of this guy running up the stairs. I don't know if you remember the old office off Capitol Boulevard.
Yeah.
But this guy running up the stairs to come grab his paycheck on Friday or whatever it was. And anyway, this guy over the weekend, he's got installs scheduled on Monday. He doesn't show up. The truck's out front. So anyway, this guy did a big workman's comp, basically fraud, and called him, and he called back. And I had the conversation recorded, and he's on a job site. You can hear the drills, you can hear stuff. And anyway, long story short is Hartford, who I don't mind saying it, they never really fought it because this guy said it was a back injury. That's when I found out he had a bunch of workman's comp claims in the past. This guy had kind of figured out how to manipulate the system, I guess. And long story short is Hartford ended up paying out. And I didn't realize as a business owner, I think it's called the mod rating or something along those lines, that
Affected you?
all of a sudden it was like $1,500 a month more that I was getting clobbered as a company because of this knucklehead just scamming the system. So, those are the things, those are the punches you take in the face along the way that, to your point, you don't know what you don't know.
And even when you think you know everything, there's always something that's coming at you that you don't see coming.
Sure.
And that's just business 101, is there's always the unexpected.
Right.
And you have to be prepared mentally, you have to be prepared financially for those things, because otherwise you won't make it. And that's why most business owners fail. Something happens that they weren't expecting, they didn't budget for, they weren't capitalized enough, and it put them out of business. It wasn't that they didn't have a great idea or didn't have a great product, it's just the things of business happen, and they weren't ready for it.
Right. And coming back to your point, in your book, if you're going to start a business, it's going to take more time, more sacrifice than you thought, and more money.
More money, more money, more money.
It definitely does. So, and again, that's one of the things I really got out of your book. But
and on that note too,
Yeah.
my wife and I, we just built our first house, and it was a 2-year process.
more
Building
money,
a house
longer.
is just like building a business. It's the same principles,
believe
and so it was kind of. I wouldn't say it was fun, but it was a learning lesson to go through that whole process, and how much building a house is like building a business, because that is your house. And so just thought I'd mention that.
No, I mean, it totally makes sense. Now, as far as an employee, one more thing about an employee, what's a quality that you think, and I'll start by saying that, like, initiative. I think initiative is one of the most underrated words when it comes to being an employee, because it's, obviously having this perspective as a business owner now, there's never a shortage of good ideas. There's never a shortage of things to fix or that can improve. There's a shortage of people that take the initiative and just go own it and fix it and this and that. And I can tell you that one of the biggest things that I see as an employer is that when an employee sees a problem and they implement the solution, or they come to you and say, hey, I want to do this, I can fix this, or I noticed this wasn't right, so I just went ahead and did it. I mean, that's huge, because, and I've never had an organization your size, but I'm sure you look across the organization, there's like 4,000 things that, you'd love to see improved and this and that. And when you got someone that steps up and takes the initiative and just does it, I mean, that's huge.
Yeah, so I like to use the word proactive, right? Because as a leader, if you're a business owner or you're a manager, you're looking for people that are proactive, that can help make your job easier. That's what we're supposed to do as leaders, to find people that can help replace the things that we do, so we can keep focusing on bigger projects and bigger visions. So I agree with you 100%. The other thing to me, Brian, that's so important with an employee is just the attitude, the positive attitude. They've got to smile. They've got to be able to, talk about positive things and not be that negative Nelly. You give me somebody that has a really good attitude and that has a great work ethic. Those are the two things. Sure. I don't care what they look like. I don't care what their background is. I can mentor and inspire and kind of shape that person into what I need them to do for whatever company I'm with.
Right.
And I just think that that's so important because so many people can be negative in life. And look, it's not all, sunshine and rainbows. There's bad things that happen
Sure.
every single day. But when you walk into that office, you make a decision of whatever's going on at home or in your personal life, like that's separate.
Stays at the door.
I'm here, like, how can I make your day great? When I walk in the office, I tell everybody, good morning, how you guys doing? And it's with a smile, because that's how I want to start my day. And if I can give them that and they can pass that on, it's so important. So that positive attitude, work ethic, those are the two really most important things. And then being proactive. Some of the best relationships I have were the guys, when I would tell them to do something or I would ask them to do something, they always did it. And then there's the other people, like, for example, if I'm going to do a leadership training class, hey guys, I like you guys to participate, but it's on you. It's not something that's required. The guys who wanted to learn and wanted to listen and wanted to better themselves, those are the people that I did the extra things for, because some people just want to coast and they're just good, right? They're complacent, and those aren't the people that I want to be around. I want people that want to bust through walls and get to that next level with me.
So what you're saying is you don't want to build your business with busy bees.
Exactly.
And you talked about that in the book as well.
That's right.
You might explain what that is.
Yeah, so many people, they're busy, like they come to the office and I see their sales are down and, oh man, I'm out there every day. Like I'm talking to people, I'm out there. And in reality, they just because they're out there and they're driving around, they think they're working. But you've got to actually have conversations to get production. And so the guy that is busy all the time but doesn't bring any type of production is the busy bee. And most of the time, we had talked about it, is those are the guys that they want a salary. They will not go on any type of production-based plan because that's just not them.
Right.
They're the busy person with no production.
Right.
So.
And I will say that honestly, I've definitely, looking back, I've gotten a funk here and there to where, I can kind of relate to that a little bit, because it's easy in sales to feel busy, but where the rubber meets the road is when you're having a conversation with someone about your product or service.
Yeah.
And man, I haven't done like hardcore sales in a while. I mean, I do sales once in a while, but a lot of our stuff is inbound. But back then when I was producing it and self-generating all of it, I can't imagine having social media and all that kind of stuff back then, because it would probably be easy to just monkey around for 30 minutes on Instagram or Facebook, and you feel like you're doing something because you're out there.
Yeah, I mean, to me, some of the best sales reps are the best time managers. They're guys that know exactly what they have to do, when they have to do, and how many times they need to do it, and they don't get distracted, and they stay on point. And that is a hard thing for guys like you and I. We have a lot of things going.
Sure.
But I've learned to try to, just do blocks of the things that I need to do. So I'm 100% focused for a certain period of time. And then we start to lose a little bit of attention span. Even though we're older, we start to think about other things. So stop what I'm doing and let me focus on something else. And I'm 100% in this, and I dedicate all my time and attention to it. And then when I start to lose focus, I stop and try to focus on another task. But John Maxwell talks about, you have a list of 10 things to do every single day, and you really should just focus on the top 2. And it's so true, is because the things that didn't make the top 2 were really not that important that day. So why are you trying to hit all 10 when number 10 really doesn't matter and could wait till tomorrow? So until those things move up on the list, really try to focus on the top 2 things that you have on your list every single day. And I think it's great advice.
Bar none, the toughest thing I deal with.
Yeah.
With employees, or I've had that 5505 number. I've had that number for like, I think it was a Nextel touch to talk that I got at your company, if I'm not mistaken.
What is it? Isn't it like 855-5505 or something like that?
Well, I don't want to put it out.
Oh, my bad.
But at the end of the day, I'm almost positive. I think actually after the USS, I think is when I got that. But we're talking 2003. I mean, I've had that. So I just get bombarded with text messages and ding, ding, and it's, to me, it's, I want to be responsive to customers. I want to be responsive to people. And, if I'm in the middle of something, the phone rings and the phone's dinging and I got something, it's so easy to get caught up in dealing with stuff coming at me that I have to do a better job of hey, I'm not available for the next 30 minutes because I got to get this done.
Yeah.
And that's something I really struggle with and have to work on because I think the heart's in the right place. Like, you text me, I want to text you back.
Yeah.
You know, but I've got to be more secluded, and just people are just going to have to understand that, you know, and again, we've got thousands of customers, you know, and a lot of them, probably half of them have my cell phone number, if not more.
Yeah.
So, you know, it's, hey, Brian, you know, I got a backdoor sensor. Okay, it's Sunday at 11 o'clock at night, you know, and I'm
Right.
getting a text message and I want to deal with it. So anyway, long story short is that's something I have to work on, and I'm sure that you've maybe mastered or become really excellent at that because you've got so many people, and you've got a book, you've got a large organization, you've got goals you're thinking about, you're trying to personally improve, and you got 5 kids.
Yeah.
Right? And an awesome wife that I'm sure helps out with that a lot, but it's still 5 kids.
Exactly.
So, so being organized is obviously pretty important. Let's see here, what else? I had so much that I wanted to cover here today, but I don't want this to go 6 hours either. I know you got things to do. But, so we talked about that. Building an organization, what is something you think you've done really right over the years as far as building a large, successful organization?
I think the number one thing about what I've done and what I want to be known for, you know, someday when, you know, I move on, somebody stands up at my funeral, whatnot,
Sure.
talks about Ben Brookhart, is that I was one of the best relationship builder guys out there. And because in business, it really truly is about relationships.
Mm-hmm.
It's relationships with your employees, number one to me. I think employees are before your customers.
Mm-hmm.
And then number two, it's with your customers. And if you, and your vendors, and just everybody is really trying to build a relationship that's not just about money. And I think that a lot of business owners, they go into business thinking about how much money they can make versus about how many relationships they can build, how much success they can have. I talk about it in my book. It's one of the things, it's my saying, right? Don't chase money, chase success, and the money always follows.
Mm-hmm.
If you look at something and say, hey, I want to go make this amount of money, and that's all you're focusing on, you're going to lose all the opportunities along the way to build relationships that will help get you to that point of earning money the way you want to. And so I think what I'm best at is building relationships that are true and meaningful, and my team knows that it's sincere, and they will run through a wall for me, and I'll do the same for them. And I think that's really key in a leadership role, that it's not just about the task, it's not just about the money, it's about the relationship. And if you do that really well, you're going to have success, and you're going to have long-term loyalty with your business. You know, my home security business I had for 15 years. I had some of the best sales reps in the industry, and they stayed with me for a long period of time. I'm talking 5, 8, 10, you know, since the very beginning.
Sure.
And you've been in the security business.
Yeah.
That's not easy.
No, it's definitely not.
Yeah.
Through all the ups and downs,
Yeah.
transitions,
Yeah.
you know, our industry has definitely not been an easy one. Maybe all the industries are like that, but it's
Right.
definitely been lots of, you know, peaks and valleys for sure.
Yeah.
But I think that's a great point, and I can, you know, personally vouch for that. You know, I know a ton of people that would go through a wall for you.
Yeah, and so I'd say the it's 2 R's. It's the relationships and it's recognition. I recognize people very well. I think that's so important. Every person loves a pat on the back. They love to hear you say good job. It's like growing up when your parents, you know, your dad, you know, when my dad would tell me, man, I love you, son, you did great, I'm proud of you. Like, that was something that really made me feel good, and whatever I just did, I wanted to do it more. And so I've done a really good job with recognizing my employees and coming up with incentives and contests. And it's crazy that sales reps, you know, in the home security business, they earn a lot of money. And per sale, they make a lot of money. And you run a contest that it's 3 or 4 sales to get the prize. They're not even focused on the money they're making on the deals. They're thinking about this bonus, and they're like, I want that bonus. And they made all these other sales that they made this money, but it was that prize, it was that competition. And that goes back to, what do I look for in an employee? I want somebody that's a competitor. I want somebody that loves competition.
Right.
That's important.
Yeah, I can totally see that. One of the things I love that in your book, again, you were talking about the Hall of Fame.
Mm-hmm.
You started the Hall of Fame in your business. I think that's just awesome.
Yeah.
But you've always been really excellent at that sort of thing. And people will absolutely go through a wall for that, recognition for sure.
Don't be cheap, man. If you're a business owner, don't be cheap. And if you've got to take a small pay cut
Mm-hmm.
to give back to your employees through some type of recognition program that
Mm-hmm.
drives growth, I would tell you to do it time after time after time, man.
Well, and that's to me, it's a principle. You got to take care of the business.
Yeah.
The business is the baby, and it's tough, I think, for employees to see that sometimes that they don't know what you're sacrificing because you're probably not broadcasting it, or I'm not, or what have you. But at the end of the day, being a business owner, you got to balance a lot of things. You got to balance happy employees.
Yeah.
You got to balance happy customers, and you got to balance being competitive in the marketplace. And then at the end of the day, you got to balance what you're doing for how much you're working, and who doesn't want to make more money.
Dude, that's a key word right there, balance. A lot of people ask me, like, Ben, I'm really struggling. I'm so focused because I'm an all-in type of guy
Mm-hmm.
that I'm gonna go as hard and fast as I can, but that's in my business. So I've got a wife who, been together for 23 years. I got 5 kids.
Right.
How do you find balance?
Mm-hmm.
To me, you have to have that. If you're getting ready to start a business, yes, you're gonna be grinding it out a lot, but you have to take care of your family. If you're married, you need to go on date nights. My wife and I just went on a date night last night. We try to do at least one date night every single week where we can have a couple hours to ourselves.
Right.
I try to coach my kids sports. I try to take them hunting. I try to take them fishing, because all of those things are important, and you've got to be able to find that balance in your life, and you can't just say it. You have to make an effort to
Right.
make it happen.
Yeah. And last thing before we jump into some solar information here. Again, this came out of your book, Success Hurricane. I want to make sure I mention that.
How to achieve success at a Category 5 level.
There you go.
That's right.
That's the key. Nobody wants a level 2
No.
hurricane.
Yeah.
Doesn't pay very well.
Hey, I'm looking for the superstorm, level 6.
There you go.
That's the next one.
That's the next level. One of the things you said in this, and I believe it 100%, is when you don't enjoy something, you won't grind it out. You won't grind. To become good at something, you really have to have a strong element of enjoyment.
Mm-hmm.
And that's probably, now that I say that's probably something you've brought to your organization with all the different things you do, is you create a different level of enjoyment, because it's not just about the money. It's about the competition and the recognition and all these different things. So for someone that's thinking about becoming self-employed, obviously in your book, is there anything else you want to add to that other than just being involved in something that you really enjoy?
If you're an entrepreneur, it's really hard to maintain things. Like, when you are a true entrepreneur, you want to build things. And for me, personally speaking, when I build up a business or I build up a new sales channel or whatever, I'm excited. Like, it's excitement, everybody around me. It's something new. Everybody loves something new.
Mm-hmm.
But then when it gets to that level where we're just kind of stagnant and we're maintaining, then that's not for me anymore. I have to find something else.
Mm-hmm.
And that can be a good thing and that can be a bad thing. But if you're going to open a business, you have to love what you do. You have to love the things that are great, and you have to love the things that are not so great.
Love the suck too.
Exactly, because there's a lot more suck
Right.
at times than there is the good things.
Sure.
And if you can't get through that, and people talk about just having that feeling in the bottom of your stomach where you can't sleep, and it's called anxiety.
Mm-hmm.
And it's something that everybody faces in their life. I have it myself at times.
Mm-hmm.
And if you find yourself having a lot of anxiety over what you're doing, then you need to reassess what you're doing.
Mm-hmm.
And you need to figure out the things that are causing you that anxiety, and how do you either A, get somebody to help you with those things, or B, maybe find something else to do.
Mm-hmm.
But your business should be something that should keep you excited even through the stressful times, because it's yours.
Right.
You're in control. You make the decisions, good or bad. It's what you do, and you've got to live with that.
Right.
And that's what I love about entrepreneurship.
Mm-hmm. Sink or swim, it's on us, largely on us.
Exactly.
And
The blame game is not happening.
well, the buck stops here, and you are the last line of defense.
That's right.
So if an employee did it, I did it.
That's right.
You know, because I hired the guy.
Yeah.
And that sucks at times, but it's ultimate accountability.
Yeah.
You know, and it's just is what it is.
I like to use the term when you're thinking about making a decision or making an investment is the juice worth the squeeze, you know?
Yeah.
And so you got to ask yourself that.
It's good. So that being said, Directional solar company, I think it's a fantastic industry. The one thing I'll say about, you know, I don't know anybody that's not for a cleaner earth. I don't know anybody that's not thoughtful about the environment, or that thinks it's a good thing to have sustainable energy. So basically 5 things. I don't want to talk over your topic here, but ultimately the topic today is 5 things about solar powered energy that the average person may not think about or should know, something along those lines.
Yeah. So I would just say for the listeners that are, you know, we're talking about business here, right? Making decisions. I just left an industry that I've been part of for 23 years of my life. It's really the only thing that I've ever known as home security. And I reached that point where I wasn't excited about what I was doing anymore. You know, our industry has changed, and can you still make money? Absolutely, 100%. But it was something that I lost my drive for. And as an entrepreneur, when you lose your drive, then you start to lose your people, you start to lose your focus, people can see it in you, and I felt that was happening for me, so it was a time where I just took the biggest risk of my life, because it's easy to start when you're young.
Sure.
But to start over with a brand new business when you're 43 and you've got 5 kids, I mean, that's a risk, but
Right.
I believe in myself and my abilities, and I'm super excited about this industry, and that's what we're talking about here is you got to have a passion for what you're doing. You got to believe in it. You got to be excited about it. And the renewable energy business right now is one of the hottest sectors in the entire economy that's going on right now. The home security business, when I got into it 23 years ago, the market penetration rate was 20%. Today, the market penetration is 24%. So that business has grown 4% over 23 years. The solar industry has a market penetration rate of 3%, and they're projecting that it's going to grow 20% in the next 10 years.
Wow.
So this industry is like a rocket ship.
Opportunity.
And it's a huge opportunity. And what I love about it most, Brian, is when you talk to customers about solar or renewable energy, any topic, they're intrigued. They want to listen. They want to learn more. They want to understand how it works.
Sure.
And because they know, yeah, it's solar panels on the roof, but yeah, how does this all work and how much does it cost? And they're interested. I was out knocking doors with a new rep the other day, and we knocked on the door, you know, selling solar. The lady was a little hesitant to open the door. I kept talking, and then she finally came out, and then I introduced her. I said, hey, this is my new rep here, Johnny Ray. And she's like, Johnny Ray, let me tell you something. Your boss, you know, knocked on my door. I never talk to people knocking on my doors. She said, like the home security guys, they come by here. She said that. And I never give them the time of day because I'm just not interested in that.
Right.
She said, but when your boss said renewable energy and he said solar, that's something I was intrigued by and I wanted to listen and learn more.
Right.
And we ended up making the sale from that. And that just goes to speak about where people are at with renewable energy and how they want to change what's going on in our world right now.
So people are very interested versus, you know, the average product out there.
Absolutely.
And I think I think the media drives a lot of that as well, is that there's so much talk about global warming or climate change, whatever you want to call it.
Yeah.
And on a side note, the biggest...
It's not fake news. It's happening.
Well,
glaciers are melting, seas are rising, temperatures, I mean, it's hotter, you know, new diseases and insect. I mean, it's crazy what's going on, and can you imagine, you know, what this world's going to look like in the next 100 years?
The biggest criticism, I would say, because I'm naturally critical, that's something I've had to work on over the years, but this definitely irks me, is that, you know, everybody that wants to talk about global warming or climate change and they want to get on social media and rant and rave about it, then I see them on vacation again in across the country. You know, I knew you flew there.
Yeah.
You know, you're driving a gas-powered vehicle just like I am. I don't know, you're so concerned about it. Are you planting trees? Tell me what you're doing to impact the society, because
Sure.
you seem to travel more than I do, and I travel a pretty good amount.
Right.
You know, so the biggest criticism I would say towards people that, what's the term? I'll think of it. Virtue signaling.
Mm-hmm.
I see a lot of virtue signaling, whereas solar is actually something you can do to actually be proactive. Coming back to that word.
Yep.
You know, if you're that concerned about the environment, what are you doing about it? You know, giving more money to the government, yeah, I'm sure that can help.
Mm-hmm.
But what are you doing about it? You planting trees? Like India, I saw planted 1 million trees or something in a 24-hour period recently. A bunch of this organization that created that. That's awesome.
Yeah.
You know, but solar, you're truly in a position to impact society in a positive way and impact the world. And this is, you know.
And it's a choice you make. Look,
Right.
I drive a diesel truck. I
Mhm.
travel. I do all those things. I care about the environment
Sure.
just like you do,
Mhm.
and everybody who's listening cares about the environment.
Right.
But what can we really do to make changes that don't maybe affect our lifestyle?
Mhm.
Because that's kind of what people are looking for, is like, hey, I'll make a change as long as it doesn't affect my lifestyle. Well, installing solar on your roof doesn't
Mhm.
affect your lifestyle, okay? It allows you to create clean energy that
Mhm.
you own
Right.
at the same price that you are sending your check to the power company. Like, that's the thing about solar people don't understand.
And maybe less long term once things are paid for. Right?
Exactly. It has
Yeah.
an end date to it. You know, the utility company that you pay your power bill to, there's no end date.
Right.
That's a bill you have to pay. And guess what? When they increase your power bill by 3 to 4% every year, like they've done for years,
Mhm.
what can you do about it?
Nothing.
Absolutely
Right.
nothing. You can't call power company B and say, hey man, they raised my rate. Can you come hook me up? Can you give me a
Right.
better deal? That's not an option.
Right.
So when you install solar on your home, then you're taking back your ability to own power,
Mhm.
and you're ultimately paying yourself for it. That's the way that it works.
Mhm. So 5 things that people need to know is, I would say, number 1, not putting words in your mouth, but most people don't understand how affordable it is
Exactly.
and how practical it is.
Yeah.
But what would you say number 1 is?
Yeah, it's definitely cost, right?
Okay.
Which is savings, is
Right.
saving money. Every year that power bill is going to go up. What we do with solar is, what's your average power bill at your house, Brian?
Probably about $300.
Wow, so that's a lot, right?
Yeah.
So you pay $300, and that $300 you pay this year is going to be, $330 next year, $360, and
Mhm.
$390, and that's going to continue to go up. That's 100% a fact.
Mhm.
So what we do is we find out what your average monthly cost is for your power.
Mhm.
Take a look at your roof to see if you actually qualify, because not
Right.
everybody does for solar. And our job is to build a solar system that will support the energy that you are currently paying from the power company, that you spend $300 with them. Build a solar system that gives you that same energy at the same price, which is $300 or maybe a little bit less.
Mhm.
The difference is your solar payment, because you get a loan for that,
Mhm.
it stays the same for 25 years, where your power bill continues to go up.
Sure.
That gap is thousands of dollars that we save. Average customer saves $25,000 over a period of 25 years.
Well, that's awesome.
Yeah, it's great.
So number 1, everybody likes to save. If you can save, that's a good thing.
Yeah.
Number 2, what would you say
I mean, it's the right thing to do for the environment.
for the environment?
Right? So you
Yeah.
get an opportunity to prevent, carbon emissions.
Mhm.
You can, I think that the average solar system, it's like planting over 200 acres of woods. It's like driving a vehicle for over 600,000 miles. That's what the average solar system saves. So it's responsible to do that.
So this is an opportunity for people to actually be proactive.
Exactly.
And truly make a difference.
Yeah.
Like the old saying, take care of your backyard before you worry about your neighbors. This is a chance to take care of your own backyard. Number 3,
Own your power.
own your power.
Right?
Be in control.
Be in control.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, the utilities that you pay is the worst rental agreement that you could ever enter. Right? Because you can't get out of it. It's never ending.
Right.
And when you put those panels on your roof, you actually own your power, and it's something that you have control of.
Right.
Yeah.
And I'll tell you personally, when you see the, I forget her name, but she got a big raise not a long time ago, about a year ago, the CEO of Duke Energy or Progress, whatever it's called now.
Yeah.
And, you know, she's making millions of dollars more raise, and then they turn around and hit us with the rate increase, you know. And it's like, as a consumer, you don't have a choice. And competition's always a friend of the consumer because it drives down costs and it causes companies to be more competitive. So this is a chance to create competition with the energy companies.
Right.
But here's the other thing, and maybe this is one of the numbers, but energy companies are actually kind of excited about solar because it's my understanding that you can push back energy to the company.
Exactly. Yeah. So the way solar works in the best case scenario is your utility provider will offer what's called net metering. And what that means is during the day when you're producing energy that you're not using, that goes back to the grid, the utility company. And when that power goes back to the grid, they purchase your power from you at the same price that they sell it to you. That's called net metering, 1-for-1. So dollar back to them, dollar out to you, and it's a credit system. And so during the winter months, when you're not using a lot of energy, you're building up credits that help pay for some of the summer months when you are really experiencing those high power bills. Like your $300 bill in the summer is probably well over $400. And so that is how net metering works, and that's where solar makes most sense. If you have a utility provider that is not participating in net metering, you can still do solar, but you have to install a battery. Because if your power company is not buying any of your energy, it makes no sense to give it to them for free.
Right.
You want to store that power on a battery at your house that you can use it at night when you need that energy.
At night, or if it's raining for 3 days or something along those lines.
Absolutely.
Because that would be a concern.
Yeah.
And another thing, obviously you have access to power when you need it, even if it's overcast for a week or something.
Yeah, exactly. So the proposal that we do, it factors in historical weather patterns for years, right? Is it sunny every day? Absolutely not.
Of course, yeah.
But the power that you create and the proposal that we build for you and how we analyze that over 25 years is exactly the way that it's going to happen, because that's the way that weather patterns have always been.
Right.
So yeah, a lot of people think, oh my gosh, it's raining now, I'm not going to be able to have any power, and that's not the case.
Right.
You're still connected to the utility.
Yeah, don't worry about the refrigerator thawing out, you know.
Right.
So are we on number 4?
Number 4,
okay.
yeah. Number 4 would be the increased value of your home. So when you install solar panels on your house, number 1 is it makes your roof last longer, because you've now put a barrier on top of your roof that is protecting it from the elements. So that's a savings to you. Number 2 is it's going to add 3 to 4%. There's several reports out there that show it's going to add 3 to 4% value to your home. So, from a money factor, that's a great thing. But what I love about it the most is this is a very competitive housing market. And if my home has solar and your home doesn't, and we're in the same neighborhood, and let's face it, most houses look pretty much similar, right?
Yeah.
And my house has a fixed power bill that never goes up, and let's say you're going to move in 5 years, what your neighbor is paying for power is not what you're paying for power, because your price got locked in 5 years ago. That $300 example, you're paying $300 a month. 5 years from now, that person, your neighbor, is probably paying close to $350 or $360. That's something that your real estate agent can promote for your home, that this has a fixed power bill and it's well below market cost, and that's a huge thing. Zillow recently just released what's called a sun number. If you look at Zillow, there's a sun number on every listing now. And what that sun number tells you is your home a good potential for renewable energy with solar? Because a lot of people are asking about that.
Sure.
And when they go buy a house, they want to know, hey, is this roof good? Are the trees interference?
Right.
And so you have a number for your home.
Interesting.
And so real estate agents need to get educated on that and be more than happy to help them with
So
that.
your sun number actually makes your house more valuable
Exactly.
or less valuable.
Yes. Yep.
So that's a great tip right there for sure. Number 5.
Tax credit. Federal government is going to give you a tax credit. It was 30% for the past 5 years. That is expiring, and it steps down, and now it's 26% starting in 2020. It goes to 22% after that, and goes to 10%, and then it's supposed to go away. So we have a few years left. I believe that 100% that's going to get rolled back, probably back up to 30%. I think it's just too big of an industry.
Right.
There's too many jobs. There's too much money at stake, and there's lobbyists out there that are fighting that right now. But it's a 26% tax credit. So if you're an employee and you have wages withheld, you pay taxes into the federal government. When you install solar, let's just say it's a $30,000 job. 30%, which is the current tax credit, that'd be $9,000. That would be a tax credit. So I would get a $9,000 credit for what I've paid in, which means that's a check coming back to you.
Right.
And you can do one of two things with that tax credit check. You can pay down your solar loan and keep your payment the same. Or if you qualify, and everybody's different, our loan program is 25 years at 2.99%.
Wow.
So I tell customers, look, if you've got a check coming back, maybe your payment goes up a little bit, but what does every American have out there most of the time? Debt.
Credit card debt.
And it's not 2.99%.
If you're paying 20% over here, don't pay down at 2.99.
Exactly.
Right.
So how much money does that save you? And that's not even on our proposal. That's just another opportunity for customers to save a lot of money. So federal tax credit is number 5. And you can put those 5 things in any order. Some customers, tax credit's number 1. Some it's the environment's number 1. But those are the top 5 reasons that people install solar on their home.
Well, at the end of the day, I would think that it just makes sense to at least look into it.
Yeah.
And if you're listening to this, you know a good company you should contact about that, Directional Solar. I can vouch for Ben. I know he does a good job. He cares about his clients. He cares about employees. And happy employees means happier clients typically. So
there's 2 things that I guarantee every customer. That if I can do solar for their home, number 1 is they're going to pay equal to or less than their current average power bill. The difference is it's not going to go to the utility company anymore. It's going to go to pay down their loan, which is owning their power, and it has an end date. Number 2 is there's no money out of pocket. Those are the 2 things that I guarantee every customer. I don't come back and say, oh, you didn't qualify for this program, you got to pay us $10,000 up front and the loan. It's no money out of pocket, and we're going to get you to equal to or less than what you're currently paying to the power company, and not have to pay them anymore.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Well, I'd also recommend Success Hurricane, achieving level at a Category 5 level.
Yeah.
And
available on Amazon, paperback, hardback, or it's on Audible book as well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I prefer, over the years I used to do a lot of reading. Now I prefer the audio book. You know, just as you're driving or doing some work that you can kind of focus in on that. But
yeah, and for the parents that are out there, I also have a children's book. It's called Things My Daddy Says.
Okay.
And again, balancing in life, that's one of the things that I've done with my kids is I love story time. I love tucking them into bed and reading that story at night, because that gives us the one-on-one, and we get to goof off and make funny voices and characters. But Things My Daddy Says is a great book that teaches some good lessons and makes it fun for the kids too. That's also available on Amazon.
Awesome. Well, thanks, Ben. I know how busy you are, and I appreciate you joining us for the podcast. Hopefully you got a lot out of this as well. I know I did. And thanks for joining us, and we'll see you next time.
Hello, this is Brian Smith, and thank you for watching. Please subscribe for more valuable content.